Hello and good evening, everybody. It is Monday night as usual, and this is The Yard Sign, the most important relevant podcast in politics. Your host is always Johnny Torres. Thank you so much for watching, listening, whenever, wherever you may be doing so. Want to thank everybody out there, especially on the audio version. If you haven't done so, subscribe to the audio version of the podcast. We moved up to 2 slots in the top podcast countdown. According to chartable.com, we are now number 148 in the country, number 148 in podcasts in the country for political podcasts. So thanks to you guys. So we continue to appreciate you downloading, listening to the show. And then, of course, if you want the video version to see our beautiful faces, you can always log on to YouTube and Facebook for not only the regular episodes, but we're going to be working on bringing you exclusive episodes and videos and interviews that are going to go strictly on those platforms as well. We've got a lot to talk about, as you might expect, especially based right here in Florida. And we've got a great local story to tell you, along with a brand new face for the show, somebody that I'm excited to have on the show tonight, who is very much entangled into our last topic of the day. So DeSantis Airlines up and running, as the Governor DeSantis shipped about 50 immigrants. Some are calling them refugees. Either way, they ended up at Martha's Vineyard. We'll kind of pick apart the fallout from that and who's kind of winning that political battle. Biden failing upwards. If you didn't catch it, they were celebrating the Biden's inflation bill on the same day that basically the stock market crashed. And so we'll talk about Biden continuing to fail upwards, especially with some news he made today. Also, it looks like there may be an economic crash coming soon. We'll talk about some of the factors as to why and what may be causing that. And again, our special guest is here to talk about our St. Pete City Council and one of the council members being forced to resign. We'll get into exactly why and what's next over in St. Pete, because that's a fun story as it continues to untangle. Of course, it only gets more and more interesting. So luckily, we have some firsthand accounts as to what's happening over in St. Pete with us tonight. So over to the big table. No Aníbal David Cabrera today. Joining me is Joe Wicker. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, man? We booted Aníbal out, but we have his
little Christmas lights.
Yeah, those are going off. Now they're flashing.
You don't like the Christmas lights?
I'm just not feeling festive. I'm not one of those guys that like seeing Christmas stuff go up in September.
Yeah,
which is happening already.
Well, that literally happened to me today. I posted that about today on my Instagram. Costco already has. They just completely skipped Halloween, all the fall stuff.
They can skip Halloween,
Thanksgiving, straight to Christmas trees and reindeers and Santas and all that kind of stuff.
We should just go summer, fall colors, oranges, reds, yellows, and then Christmas. Go straight to Jesus. Man. Well, because the fall, that would be my compromise. Instead of like making a big deal out of Thanksgiving, we get rid of Halloween. Yeah. Just make it fall with the nice colors, and then we go straight to Jesus. So from summer through some leaves, summer through some nice leaves, driving through the mountain pass, you got the beautiful leaves, and you end up with Jesus. There you go.
There you go.
Well, the 2 most important holidays is 4th of July.
Right.
Exactly.
And Christmas.
Everything else is a bonus.
Jesus. Everything else is a bonus.
Here in the center chair, joining us for the first time ever is someone we certainly hope to have on a more frequent basis now that we kind of were able to twist his arm enough to get him across the bridge. Vincent Nowicki, everybody. How you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for having me today.
I want to set the primer. You and I met, I guess it was maybe about a year ago.
Yeah.
You were already kind of full force. Certainly earlier than anybody out there campaigning as you were trying to build your campaign for mayor of St. Petersburg.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. There was a lot of buzz, especially, for those of us, kind of on the younger end of the spectrum, even though I'm just aging out of that.
You're aging out. Yeah.
I know. And, but always exciting to see young people run for office. And especially in St. Pete, it's, in St. Petersburg itself, Pinellas, it's obviously a mixed bag politically, but in the city of St. Pete, it's just, it's not a place where we get to see a lot of competition.
Yeah, no, it's tough in St. Pete. It's definitely an uphill battle if you believe in being fiscally responsible.
Yeah.
It's tough.
But anybody that I talked to that knew you before we met always talked about, just what a great guy you are and how brilliant you are, because apparently you're kind of like a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, so I have a real estate business, which is pretty successful. Do some development and investing. I wouldn't say serial entrepreneur, but that's my biggest business.
Yeah,
is real estate.
And again, that was one of the things that when you and I sat down and, out of transparency, we were talking about coming onto your campaign.
Right.
At the time I was working with, another friend of mine in consulting campaigns, and we were going to come on and hopefully help you run your campaign for mayor. And again, as these things go, and it's one of the things that I like to talk about on this show because too many people don't know all the machinery that goes on in the back end.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty remarkable. People think, oh no, you just show up, put your name on the ballot and, good luck. And there's just so many figures involved. There's so many people involved. There's so many elements involved, into really what's going to make or break a campaign.
Right.
And so correct me if I'm wrong. We just kind of looked at the lay of the land and some of the characters that kind of jumped in at various times and, kind of decided right now maybe wasn't the best time.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't, necessarily want to be a Ross Perot, if you will.
Yeah.
To where, I just spoiled.
I just love that you brought that up for some reason. I don't even know why. But I feel like, go ahead, keep going. Yeah. That's awesome.
So, I didn't want to be a Ross Perot and spoil the party to not even give fiscal conservatives a chance to even have some sort of representation in City Hall.
Yeah.
At the time that we met, I knocked over 10,000 doors, had thousands of yard signs up throughout the city, raised a good chunk of money for being a first time, no name candidate.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was doing, had websites, had videos, had Google.
Oh, you were full blown. I mean, by the time we met, you were already like in third, fourth gear. I mean, it was, we were kind of jumping onto a moving train at that point.
Right. And so, but politics happens.
Yeah.
Things behind the scenes happen. And
you got that right.
But what I appreciate and what I think a lot of younger candidates, or even let's just say first-time candidates, really, because the age doesn't really have anything to do with it, is that, again, they don't want to accept the pieces, the chessboard for what it is.
Yeah.
Right? They think that they're the chosen one, and regardless of what the chessboard looks like, that they think that they can win.
Well, that's why they're not in politics anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And what I think was brilliant is that you kind of looked at the lay of the land, you talked to all the right people, you did a very thorough assessment, as to kind of what were the odds of you coming out ahead in that competition. And you, again, timing wasn't right, but I mean, you've made and continue to make just an incredible impression in the community. You've stayed involved. You've stayed very vigilant, which is why we have you here tonight. And we'll talk a little bit more about that coming up. But how do you feel now, let's say 6 months later, 9 months later, after kind of stepping aside?
A year later. It's been about a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how do you feel about that decision and kind of everything that's transpired since?
Well, so I feel good about it. I get, people come up to me all the time and say, hey, it was a tough decision that you made to get out of the race, but you made the right decision. And then I would, my advice to any first-time candidate or any candidate that either gets out of a race or loses the race is to stay involved in the community, in the people that supported you.
Yeah.
Just don't disappear, because then you're just kind of leaving these people that, signed wave for you, door knocked for you, went to fundraisers. You just kind of leave them hanging, and they're...
Well, I mean, Joe and I will tell you, I mean, there's so many guys that we know that just go ghost.
Right.
I mean, they just vanish.
Right.
I asked somebody that should know the right answer, like what was the percentage of first-time candidates that when they lose, they just go away forever? Like how many people basically never run again? And the answer was like 85%.
Wow.
So Which kind of lines up, I think, with if we just kind of think back to all the people that we know.
Yeah,
it kind of lines up, you know.
But what's funnier is some that we know moved and ran in other places and ended up getting elected in other places.
Yeah,
and so there's that factor.
Yeah. No. I just meant in general. They like you said, they disappear, and it's like 85% of people that run for office, they end up just disappearing. And I think the other aspect of that is like it's like even a greater percentage in totality don't take the lessons learned like you're talking about, or kind of learn the lesson in the middle of the process. Like it sounds like you kind of figured some things out in the middle of the process, and you had to make a calculated decision, which you did.
I would think politically for you, I mean, that you were able to make some really strong connections.
Correct.
Yeah.
Really kind of build a foundation for whenever you decide, if you decide to run again.
Yeah, I mean, I have definitely a solid, power base that if I wanted to get into any race within, 1 to 2 weeks, I could have $100,000 raised, yard signs printed, shirts printed, everything done, and would be a force to be reckoned with any race I decide to get into.
Yeah. That's
so
awesome.
what would you say are like one or two things that you learned? And I know I feel like St. Pete might as well be like in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? Like
sure.
It's just the way
it's a whole different world.
It's the way we treat Pinellas County for some weird reason, Hillsborough and Pinellas.
But it is, it's so different.
Yeah. It feels like politically it's a completely different, just so far away, even though it's our neighbor.
Well, and even the lifestyle's so different over there.
Yeah. So I know, so I know politics are different over there, but I think the more things change, the more some things kind of stay the same, right? And some things are just the same in politics worldwide, probably. Yeah. What did you learn from that? Do you think? What was one of the big lessons?
Don't be afraid to ask people for money. So as a business owner, that was always the biggest thing I initially had a hard time doing. I was like, I'm not really giving them anything. So I feel bad asking.
Giving them hope, man.
Yeah.
It's hope and change. It's hope and change.
Hope and change. So I had I felt bad just, asking people to give me money for really nothing in return. So that kind of, took a while to.
Asking for money's tough.
Yeah.
It's hard.
But now I have no problem doing it. So if you want to donate
and
in the
door
future,
knocking?
let me know.
I have a questionnaire. There's an interview process.
And I did door-to-door sales, and I dropped out of college, went door-to-door selling windows, roofing, and siding.
Oh, so the door knocking was no problem for you.
It's easy.
You were relentless then. You wouldn't even let them. You wouldn't even let them say no. You're like, well, what about these windows? Well, okay. Well, I also do solar.
So I put my foot in the door if they're trying to close it. Well, what do you mean?
That's how you knock out 10,000 doors. Before anybody else has even jumped in the race.
No, I like door knockers, man. If somebody, I like it when a candidate's willing to bust their tail and get out there and do the hard work because man, people don't realize. Obviously, the candidate can only do so much, right? You got to have money too. I mean, door knocking's not enough,
right?
Okay, but you can gain a lot of ground by actually asking people for their vote, going to someone's house and just toughing it out. There's obviously you get doors slammed in your face. I know you experience that, but you get people that appreciate it and people that and it blows the candidate's mind. But you probably had some people say like, no one's ever come to my door and asked me for my vote, 100%. And you're like, how's that so?
Yeah. Right.
Like in 100 years, like in the last 20 years, like no one's ever come here. But you probably got some people like that were appreciative that you were willing. Yeah.
Well, and I remember you were very granular about the stuff you were doing in the community, and you were doing some really kind of unique stuff, very kind of different again, which again is not too far from some first time candidates. You don't know the rules, right? You don't know the mold, and so you don't know that you're breaking the mold, right? Which I think is fantastic,
right?
And so are those things that you continue to do, or would you do things differently if you run again?
I think I would just be so aggressive. I mean, just such a full court blitz that it would just take away hope from anybody else wanting to run against me.
Right.
I would have money raised. There would just be an automatic presence, endorsements. I mean, the whole gambit would be run. Before anybody would they would just be like, well,
because what a lot of people don't realize is the respect and the clout that you gain simply by saying, you're right. Right now is not the right time. Let me kind of sit this one out. You guys go ahead and sort this out.
Right. I mean, I'm literally, if I decide or when I decide to run for office, be willing to die on the street So my opponent better be willing to die there with me, knocking on doors or talking to voters.
Sure.
Because that's going to be my commitment level. And I think a lot of these politicians that run or get in a race don't understand that. And when I was running, that was my commitment level, is that I'm willing to die on Central Avenue to become the next mayor of St. Petersburg.
Well, and I can imagine everything that's kind of transpired since then probably has only fueled that fire.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, you're ready for, if this mayor thing doesn't work out, you're ready for Navy SEAL training.
All right, everybody.
That's the level of commitment.
That's no kidding. We going to try some interactive stuff here today on today's show. Let's get into today's first topic. DeSantis Airlines, as the governor through the legislature allotted, I think it's about $12 million to help in dealing with some of the illegal immigration issues that happen here in Florida. People who may not be watching from Florida or be new to Florida are kind of wondering how that happens, given that we're not technically a border state. But we get a lot of people who come from other countries and they overstay their visas. And then, of course, you have your Cuban, Haitian immigrants who come on rafts and all kinds of other makeshift floating devices and arrive in the Keys and other parts of South Florida. And so, let's kind of be honest. This is kind of a way for a state governor to kind of show really how tough he would be on immigration, because that's not something you typically kind of get to flex your muscles much. That's not an area that you
who
really.
Who was doing it first? Did Abbott do it first? Okay,
yes.
So DeSantis, once somebody did it, he was like, "I got to jump on this." But
Abbott did the first buses to New York.
Okay, but like you said,
and he's still doing those.
Okay, but Governor DeSantis had this put into the budget, so this was a thought out. This was planned.
Oh, and all the Democrats voted for it.
Yes,
which is the most brilliant part about all of this.
12 million, right? It was
12 million.
Yeah, and they all voted yes.
And they all voted yes for it
because it was part of the bigger budget that they all agreed to. Or anyways, that's
no.
funny.
So the Democrats now can go and they can, they can cry me a river about, how this money's being spent, and they'll be like, you voted for it.
Yeah.
They're trying to make a lot of noise and fuss about, I don't know. They're basically trying to, now trying to separate themselves from
what's wrong. Well, this just goes to show, and I love this whole thing occurring because it goes to show finally Republicans are fighting back and calling out the left on their rhetoric. It's like, okay, if you're if you're going to promote having a sanctuary city, we will assist you in having if you want to have a sanctuary city, we'll send you some illegal immigrants, and then you can be a sanctuary city.
So that brings me to my Exhibit A, which is Charlemagne the God, very popular morning show radio host, now has really blown up recently, has his own show on Comedy Central, who I feel is truthfully kind of taken over what the Daily Show should have been. And he had, this is a very liberal audience he's talking to, and you'll see it by the looks on their faces. Here we go. Oh, hang on. Where'd my audio go? Let's see. Hang on one second. So,
this is the same guy that had Joe Biden on, where Joe Biden said, "If you don't vote for him, you're not black."
Right. Exactly.
It's the same show, right, Charlemagne?
Yeah. And also it was on his morning show that he's just a member of. He's not the main guy, but he's a member of, where Hillary made the comment about having hot sauce in her bag. And got ridiculed for that. So this guy's but he himself, you can tell, is nonpartisan. He's one of these guys, like, he doesn't care. He probably hates both sides. Right. But this clip was too good to not share.
D.C. and Chicago with the message of, if you like them so much, they're yours. Okay? Well, just in time.
Hold on. Let me see if I can rewind it here. Sorry, I know this doesn't make for a great.
For months, Republican governors have sent busloads of illegal immigrants to sanctuary cities like New York, D.C., and Chicago with the message of, if you like them so much, they're yours. Okay? Well, just in time for Hispanic Heritage Month, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis upped the game by sending 2 planefuls of immigrants to the East Coast elite's favorite vacation island, Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts. I personally think it's genius. But I wish that governors like Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott would give Democratic governors and mayors more of a heads up, because then that would expose the hypocrisy of the Democrats, which is they don't want immigrants here either.
I mean, that's it.
It's true.
And I mean, that's it. That summarizes the entire point being made here. And the beautiful thing is that they're now truly experiencing, what it is to be a border state or an immigrant state, because I mean,
right.
At the first sign of these buses,
right.
Forget Martha's Vineyard.
Right.
I mean, look at what's happening in DC.
Yep.
With the buses dropped off at the Naval Observatory, which is amazing, and
that's where the vice president's house is, right?
And the media tried to ignore that one.
Yeah.
And then Abbott continues to send buses to New York City as well. Like, they are in full blown panic. They're calling in FEMA. They're calling in
the National Guard.
Yeah, the National Guard.
What I love about this is, let's go back 10 years maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wait a minute. Let's go back about 20 years. If anybody, for those that don't remember, Republicans and Democrats used to actually be in agreement on illegal immigration. Actually, both parties, for different reasons probably, but for different reasons, neither one of them really supported any type of illegal immigration. It was kind of a known thing. There was a problem. We need to work it out, whatever. Nothing ever got done. The political talking point was always this: comprehensive immigration reform.
Which is a matter of national security and how it impacts the economy.
But that's what everybody said. It was code. Comprehensive immigration reform was code for we're not going to do shit. I mean, that's really what it was.
Yeah.
It was code for we're not going to do anything, but it sounds like we're going to do something. And it went on and on and on. And then Donald Trump decided to run for office.
Yep.
And in his opening speech says, hey, we're building a wall, because he was willing to politicize something that was a real issue. Because if you had a ranch on the southern border, you were literally to the point to where you couldn't go out on your you grabbed your rifle.
That was that southern coming out there.
I actually sounded like it sounded northern. You grabbed your rifle and had to go out armed on your own property, because you had not just illegal immigrants, but you actually had the gangs coming across, right?
The coyotes, the gangs.
Which is different, because they've done some programs where they've interviewed the ranchers down there, and they would tell you, like, in the late 70s, it was people coming to work, and they worked on our property.
Yeah.
Like, we hired them, and they worked, and everything was great. We were like neighbors, Then, like, in the 80s, it was like they weren't really here to work anymore. They just wanted to pass on through. And so it was like, all right, big deal, right? Mm-hmm. Like, whatever, you're working in the next town over. And it wasn't, and then it became about drugs. And then like in the 2000s, it became about trafficking, human trafficking. And that's when the ranchers are like, guys, this stuff's getting dangerous. Like, these people aren't even coming to work. Like, now it's like coyotes and it's the gangs and it's crazy, right? So they've been screaming about this. Okay, so jump ahead 10 years. For the last 10 years, you've been hearing Republicans saying this is an issue we need to deal with, and Donald Trump making it headlines. And every time a Republican did that, the Democrats pushed back and said, "Oh, you're racist. Oh, you just don't like brown people. Oh, you just don't like these Hispanics because they're not voting Republican," which isn't even true. And so finally, we've come to a head where Republicans are like, "All right, so if y'all aren't going to do anything, then we're just going to send them to." And the Democrats in their political talking points, to try to get votes and to try to pander to their base, created this concept of sanctuary city.
Right,
oh, don't worry, you can come here. See, we're better than those terrible racist Republicans. You can come to our city, not believing that any of those people would actually make it to Chicago or D.C. or New York. See, they figured they would just stay in Texas and Florida and wherever. And now the governors are like, all right, you know what, screw it. You got them.
Right.
We're going because we get illegals come through every week, every day. The Border Patrol is encountering thousands.
Well, and the unspoken truth here too by the media and the Biden administration is that they've basically handcuffed the Border Patrol.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot that they can do.
And they can't even process all of them.
Well, and to that point, the Biden administration themselves are flying these overnight flights from border states into other parts of the country.
Because they can't handle it.
Even here to Florida, without the governor's knowledge.
To remember the whole pictures of immigrants with the aluminum emergency blankets over them, and the Democrats tried to say they were in cages,
right,
and all that, and it's like, guys, y'all built this. Like, this is Obama's facilities they built. We're just trying to get through all of them. We can't even process this many people, and the separation of parents and everything, which wasn't actually the separation. Well, some parents probably got wrapped up in it, but the separating of children from the adult that came with them, because what we've learned is that many of these adults are not guardians or parents of these children. They're actually using these children to get across the border, and because they know that we're stupid and we're going to be like, oh, you're the dad? Oh, okay. And who is this? Oh, and he's got 15 uncles too? Okay, fine. We'll let you all in. When in reality, they were smuggling those kids. So they gave us a hard time about that. Democrats giving Republicans a hard time about that. But in reality, when Biden got in office, remember Kamala Harris got put in charge of immigration because things were a catastrophe. And what was their way of handling it? Like you said, they just started shipping people out on planes and just having them land.
So they couldn't make the story that they were overwhelming the border facilities. Which is what they because according to the most recent numbers, they're estimating that this year alone, they're close to about 500,000 people that have come through illegally. Since the Biden administration took over, they're saying that they're anywhere from about 2 to 3 million illegal immigrants have crossed into the United States.
And we all knew that the Democrats were lying. We all knew that the Democrats were just using political talking points. We all knew that underneath all of that virtue signaling was to Hispanics was really the roots of the Democratic Party, which is segregation, subjugation, and just flat out racism. We knew that there was racism involved in that. But it really got exposed in this Martha's Vineyard thing because these people can't even contain themselves. I mean, they went berserk. And within 48 hours called in the National Guard. You would have thought that it was the 1960s and Martin Luther King was coming across the bridge.
Well, the amazing thing is that obviously they showed where they're all chipping in and bringing in catered food.
Oh my gosh!
And they had cots and all this kind of stuff.
They weren't even feeding them the good cereal. Did you see? It was like Crispy Pops. It was like it wasn't even Rice Krispies. They were feeding them the junk cereal that they got from some kind of homeless shelter. These rich people who spend their whole life criticizing,
and they're claiming that they didn't have enough housing.
We have a housing crisis.
They have a housing crisis. You're going to tell me that there weren't, let's say, 50 Airbnbs that
are vacant because it's out of season. They all just left. They got hundreds of beds open.
Remember what was the one? Was it the Ukrainians? Or that's all of a sudden everybody's opening up their Airbnbs. Oh, if you need a place to stay.
For the Ukrainians.
It's it's like, come and stay here.
Once again, and Ukrainians are what color? Exactly. And they're viewed as European.
These immigrants were not even in Martha's Vineyard 48 hours.
Not even 48 hours for the freaking National Guard. You can't even get the National Guard soldiers to the armory in 48 hours. I mean, like these guys were like, we're getting called up. They were probably like, what? We're on alert. What's happening? What's happening? Oh my God, where are we going? We're going to Syria. Oh my God. No, you're going to Martha's Vineyard. What? What? We're going to Martha's for what? Well, we got we got to get these guys out of there.
Well, here, I know you sent me this CNN quote. Vince, you got to just jump in.
This one will piss you off. This one will piss you off.
But here we go. This is from CNN. 44-hour visit. They left an indelible mark. And actually, Ben Shapiro did almost an hour-long episode today on DeSantis and this whole thing, which is brilliant because he also talks about this video here.
This is cringe. This is cringy. It's racist cringe.
Well, it's typical. It's you can tell that
elitist.
It's typical liberal elitism from people that have probably never interacted with minorities outside of maybe the people who do their landscaping and
the fact that Obama lives there. And with Obama, they're like, okay, well, Michelle and Obama, they can move in.
Oh, well, we'll talk about that in a second.
Venezuelan migrants were given a warm send-off. Volunteers embracing each person.
Give me a freaking buses.
Break. Then ferries and onto the next part
of their long
journey. Their unannounced arrival Wednesday, all part of a campaign by Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to send migrants
Abbott's got to be pissed
so-called
because DeSantis really took all the momentum
by surprise.
All we're trying to do is offer transport to sanctuary jurisdictions free to the alien, but certainly not mandatory. And that way they're able to go and these sanctuary jurisdictions can put their money where their mouth is.
These immigrants were picked up in Texas. Some of them say they were taken to a hotel to wait, then boarded planes. Well, we didn't know until the last minute our destinations, such as New York, where our relatives reside, he says. Yang Pablo Mora and other immigrants we spoke to here say they were promised all sorts of things.
Yay, we got rid of them.
Housing, things that never materialized. We were told it was humanitarian aid by a foundation that, in this case, remains unknown, he says. It's just the latest account of migrants seemingly deceived.
Oh, by the way, I saw a picture of the brochure that all the immigrants got. And it was like, it had like the flag of the Massachusetts state flag on it. And, here are immigrant resources. And it's all from their website. It's like official state, they have like an office of immigrant and refugee resources.
Sure.
And so, they're trying to say that, again, like, they gave them all this misleading and false information, and everything on the pamphlet is true. Everything.
And dropped off. From Washington, D.C.
They felt fooled, and they felt that their suffering was exploited.
To confusion in New York City.
You went to Martha's
Standing
Vineyard.
at Port Authority, he asked me, and how do I get to Portland, Oregon?
To California, where Governor Gavin Newsom has asked the Department of Justice to open an investigation into the controversial practice.
What Ron DeSantis is doing is
Brilliant.
disgrace. It's almost monstrous.
They did get a packet that had the map of Martha's Vineyard.
What Newsom's done to California is a disgrace.
Very well with all this. I mean, they're treated well with meals and everything.
While volunteers and officials in Martha's Vineyard promptly responded and cared for their unexpected guests, lawyers assisting the immigrants say the stop did nothing but detour already desperate.
It was a church.
It was sickeningly cruel, throwing obstacles in the way of people fleeing violence and oppression, some of whom walked through 10 countries in the hopes of finding safety.
Yeah.
My heart.
And they got a charter flight.
Because they were not.
And they got to the richest zip code. Look at this lady.
Forever.
You've uncovered my racism and my elitism. They'll be in my heart.
So it was only 2 days.
I mean, I don't understand
that lady
why
is something else.
It's so bad to end up there. I mean, how is that bad? I mean,
that's the thing. It's one of the richest zip codes in the country.
They won't let us in. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
If we went there, they want to see our vaccine.
I bet you I couldn't afford a weekend there.
Yeah.
No, you probably.
I mean, I need to make a call.
What would it cost to golf? Anybody know? I mean, what would it cost to golf?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I need to call DeSantis' office and see if he can get me a charter.
They wouldn't let him. They wouldn't let him golf there. They wouldn't let him golf there.
But you actually made a point while we were watching the video, which is, I think, spot on, which is that note that they didn't talk to the Obamas. They didn't talk to Barbara Streisand. They didn't talk to any of the celebrities and politicians that are known to live or vacation there. All right, because they knew it's a trap. I mean, it was. I mean, that's really what this was.
Yeah.
It was a trap to call out their hypocrisy and on the sanctuary city front, and it worked beautifully.
Look, if you're a Democrat and you get the microphone put in front of you on this, the only rational thing you can do
is start to cry.
You could do that like that lady did, because some people will believe that lady. Those are called alligator tears, y'all. Those are alligator tears. What the only rational thing a Democrat could do is say, look, we understand that, we have a policy in the state of Massachusetts, okay, to allow for, we're not trying to lock these people up. We're not going to lock them up. We're going to get them the services they need. That may or may not be on Martha's Vineyard, but we get the stunt, we got it, and we'll take care of these people. It's 50 people. Right. It's 50 people. You mean to tell me that, like, legitimately, that they don't have the ability to actually care for 50 people? They do.
Of course.
So the fact, if it was 1,000 people,
I'm sure in Martha's Vineyard, I'm sure there's probably one house that can at least sleep 50 people.
Oh, for sure.
I would bet I would bet everything I have on that.
Look, if it was thousands of people descended upon a golf course in Martha's Vineyard, obviously they'd say, "Listen, we can try to put together some meals or something, but we don't really have a lot here for you." I mean, 50. But it's 50 people.
They could have went to McDonald's.
Like the local restaurant, the local cafe has food for 50 people.
Right.
Like you can't say you're a sanctuary city or state or anything, and then say you can't handle 50 people.
Right.
And then to make it, but to call in the National Guard.
Oh yeah. Well, here's what I love,
National Guard?
and this is the prize, right? This is really the
they didn't even hold on. They didn't even want to touch those people. That's how blatantly racist and offensive this is. They didn't actually want to even talk to those people.
Yeah.
They didn't want to touch them. They didn't want to look at them. They called in the freaking.
It was literally
soldiers.
the homeowners association for Martha's Vineyard that basically went into action and got the feds involved and got the National Guard involved. And
how do they have those contacts?
They wanted,
because the president of the homeowners association at Martha's Vineyard's probably got more power than the president of the United States.
Yeah,
that's why.
Well, and again, the only people that were actually helping them was a Presbyterian church there at Martha's Vineyard.
Probably.
And that's, I believe, where they ended up staying.
Sure. Because it was only 50 people.
Right. So this is, like I was going to say, this is the trophy. This is the front page of the New York Post 2 days ago. Day before yesterday, liberals deport immigrants. Or deport migrants. Hypocritical rich Dems of Martha's Vineyard ship them off by ferry. And then they have they're showing the bus that they were all in on the ferry boat.
Watch, they're going to somebody ought to get video of them disinfecting that ferry ship, because they're going to do that. They're going to call in waste management or some eco team to come in and disinfect it. They're probably so scared of having had immigrants.
Sure, these are people that they are used to having as the help.
Yeah. They're probably, I bet the lady that was crying, watch, as soon as the camera shut down, she was like, "Okay, call Ecolab. We got to get the dysentery off that ship. We got to disinfect that ship. It's probably got COVID or something. Gosh. Put masks on all of them. Put 3 masks on every single one of them.
Yeah.
On their way out of here.
Take your shot too.
Yeah. Free oh no, we vaccinated them all for free, guys. We're here to help."
Now this is, of course, where everybody is kind of, connecting all the pieces to, right? Which is whether or not Trump decides to or is able to run in 24. I mean, this is an amazing chess move here to kind of line himself up for a 24 race.
What, for him just to comment on it, or
no, for him to run? I mean, now you can say, "Look, I'm going to be tough on immigration." How tough? Oh, look what I did in Martha's Vineyard.
Mean for DeSantis?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You were saying Trump. Okay.
Yeah.
For DeSantis. Yeah. No, I mean, he obviously, he showed.
Well, and I'm sure Trump appreciates that he's taking some of the heat off the media kind of off his back a little bit.
Yeah. No, I think. Yeah. I mean, if you had any doubt that DeSantis had guts, I mean, this probably alleviates that.
But I think we're seeing the beginning of what will be, if not 24, 28's primary, which is, I think it's going to be Abbott and DeSantis.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
And Trump not in it?
Well, again, 28. Let's say 28. Just to give Trump the benefit of the doubt.
Okay. I was going to say, because yeah.
But you realize they're both making chess moves for 24. I mean, that's what it looks like. You can easily connect those dots and say this is political theater for 24.
DeSantis absolutely has the ability to run for president if he wanted to. In 2024. Yeah.
Oh, mind you, there was a hysterical poll that came out that allegedly Kamala Harris beats DeSantis.
Yeah, right.
Don't even get me started on that.
No, that's
but you actually wanted to share this next graphic, which is thanks to the vice chairman of the RPOF, our friend Christian Ziegler, who's probably going to be the next chairman, possibly, likely. Floridians are rejecting the Democrat Party again, especially at a time where, because of the Dobbs bill, we're seeing a lot of Democrat registration around the country, especially among women. Here in Florida, it went from October 19, 2018 to having 4.6 million Republicans to 5.1 million 4 years later, by July 25th of 22. So 500,000 new Republican voters.
Well, there was like a 350,000 vote deficit for Republicans just 4 years ago.
Right. Well, that's what it shows. So in 2018,
and now
Republicans had 4.6 million registered voters. Democrats had 4.9 registered voters.
Right, and so now Republicans are up by like 200,000.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's a big swing. I mean, that's
huge.
Yeah, it's a huge swing. And actually, what this shows, because I was a little nervous about it too. You got to dig into the data to know what's going on. I was a little nervous that during COVID, a bunch of the liberals were going to flee their liberal policies because they don't actually want to live up to it. And I was worried they were going to come to free states like Florida. Yeah. But in reality, I think what's happened, according to these numbers, I'm sure some liberals have come here. But really, what's happened? But really what's happened is conservatives in those states have said, screw it, we're out.
Yeah.
I'm popping smoke. I'm out.
Well, that's kind of, again, that's kind of been, for lack of a better term, kind of the Rogan effect, right? Because Joe Rogan, while he doesn't consider himself a Republican,
right?
He considers himself very kind of middle of the road,
right?
He's liberal on some issues, conservative on some issues,
right?
But by no means really partisan either way. He looked at what his lifestyle had become in California. He goes, "This sucks."
Yeah.
And I like to hunt. I like to work for a living.
Yeah.
And I can't do any of those things.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm out. He's like, he couldn't even go to the gym.
Ben Shapiro left California.
Ben Shapiro. I'm surprised.
Moved to Tennessee.
I'm surprised. Prager. Prager's still based out of L.A. I'm surprised that won't last long. I don't think. I don't see that lasting much longer.
He's one audit or investigation away.
Yeah. But again, I think this Martha's Vineyard thing. Look, the problem is that they're trying to treat DeSantis like they treat Donald Trump, and the problem is that DeSantis has what Trump does not, and that's a legal background. DeSantis is an incredibly knowledgeable and sharp attorney.
Yeah.
Harvard, Yale, educated. He is 3 steps ahead.
I would also argue that while I appreciate that Trump liked to hire people by their resumes, DeSantis has the political awareness that the people that he has around him are not only smart, but they're loyal.
Yeah.
And he's not going to get blindsided by stuff. And I felt like a lot of times the people that were in the Trump administration weren't necessarily for Trump's policies. And DeSantis is not going to let that happen.
Well, the problem is as business owners that you guys are, I mean, it's scaling. The problem is Trump went from, let's say, the Trump organization,
right,
where he had kind of a tight-knit group of people that he could trust and that advised him. And it's like you go from being maybe like a regional business to all of a sudden you're like an international business.
Yeah.
And you have to quickly bring in whoever and everybody you can.
Yeah.
Because the scaling just has gotten away from you.
I think the challenge, though, was that Trump, as much as I love the CEO mindset that he has and had, and that was very beneficial because Trump being who he was, like he wouldn't let a lot of things just fester and be worked on by the bureaucracy. He'd be like, screw that, I'll call the guy.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't too good to call like a local mayor or something.
Yeah.
He would just pick up the phone and call the guy and do business, which is what business people are used to doing because they want to move and make things happen. Yeah. But unfortunately, he would look at people based on their resume. And you could be a Democrat who doesn't even believe in Trump's policies. But if you had like a really stellar resume, academic pedigree and all this stuff, like he'd hire you. And it's like, bro, this is different. This is not, they're not running the Trump Tower.
Right.
They're not running one of your properties. Okay. This is politics. And that person is subject to all sorts of issues.
Yeah.
They might have their own political aspirations later. You got to take that into account. DeSantis is not going to make those mistakes.
Well, and that goes to my point, where Trump has made a lot of missteps, opening himself up to the accusations of a lot of things that may or may not be illegal and things that he may have done inappropriately and this and all of that. DeSantis isn't making those mistakes because he knows to cross those T's and dot those I's legally.
Yeah.
And so when people want to accuse him of being a human trafficker, when people want to accuse him of human rights violations, all that stuff falls flat,
right?
Because he's done his homework.
It's going to be on point.
Well, especially again, when did they sign up on the budget? For the legislature. 4 months ago.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
And so they've had all this time to plan this out and make sure that they got it right.
And he
and there was no clock.
Voted for it. And everyone voted for it.
Everybody voted for it. Exactly.
Yeah. No, he had everything on point, from the airplanes that were chartered to the landing at Martha's Vineyard and all that.
And I'm sure nobody knew what they were going to do with those $12 million.
Probably not. It was just for immigration support.
Which makes it even more beautiful that they all kind of, went along with it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, again, where does that leave Democrats? Again, it's like they all signed off on it.
Well, and here's the thing. So, again, the Democrats are saying it's a Republican stunt. Yeah, I guess you could say it is, because it's only 50 immigrants. But we got thousands more.
Right.
So we can ramp it up and get serious.
Yeah. This is a warning shot.
Took 50. It only took 50.
This was a warning shot.
What if it was 5? They would have freaked out if it was 5. I mean, 50 people.
Yeah.
There's 50 illegal immigrants that probably came to Tampa this week.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's like 3 Hispanic families.
Okay, you said it, not me.
Well, the 90 of them just came into Islamorada 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is that a rich neighborhood here locally?
Yeah, down in South Florida.
Yeah, down in the Keys.
Oh, okay. Well, guys,
But they didn't call in the National Guard there.
No, they're used to it. I mean, it's so funny because I follow these Instagram accounts from Miami. And on a random weekend, they'll just find a makeshift raft, wash up ashore.
Yeah.
50 people in there.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, it's just, you see people jumping off and...
People probably don't even bat an eye, do they? They probably don't even stop. No. They don't even...
No, of course not.
They don't even put down their lunch.
Well, because some of them, that's how they came.
Yeah, right.
So they're like, oh, hey, it's
it's a long...
Been there, done that,
the road to Miami, it's kind of long. You might want to hitchhike or something. Catch an Uber.
Kind of missed it by about 30 miles.
Yeah.
Oh, but
that's wild.
Oh man. So, all right. Thank you everybody for watching the Yard Sign. Got Joe Wicker, Vincent Nowicki joining me here tonight. We're having a great conversation here about Governor DeSantis. Let's move this along and
look at that laugh on the pic there. That's DeSantis this past week with the illegals.
Well, and that's the thing.
Landing.
Is he as charming or as engaging as Donald Trump is? Nobody doesn't have to be. DeSantis at every step of the way is 2-3 steps ahead of the Democrats, and they don't know what to do with them. So, all right, getting into Biden failing upwards again. Literally the day that Biden was celebrating the signing of his inflation bill, or the Stop the Inflation bill, or whatever fancy name they had for it, the stock market literally crashes. The inflation rate goes up, and they're celebrating. And I think this is just par for the course. I mean, again, they don't have a handle on immigration, obviously. They don't have a handle on inflation. Wednesday, the Treasury Secretary is about to announce another rate hike, which, again, I'm sure the market's probably going to react unfavorably to.
Now, Vincent, are you commercial or residential? Or both?
Both.
Okay, so we're at 6%, right? Mortgage rates, I think, about 6%. Okay, they're saying, I guess people are already saying, it might be a full basis point, so a full percent, right?
Right.
And then other people are like, but that way the Fed could come out with a 0.5%, and then the markets will react positively because people are afraid that the market's going to tank. I mean, where are we going here? Is this even going to matter?
Undersell and over-deliver.
Where do you think we're going with this? You're the finance guy.
I'm not finance.
You're the real estate guy. You're the money guy.
So I shake my money.
Fiscal
guy.
conservative. You're the fiscal conservative.
I shake my money guy.
Okay. So where are we going with this with the real estate?
So I don't think you're going to see, mortgage rates aren't, isn't the Fed. Rates.
Fair enough. Right.
So
yes.
those are different. So
that's true.
A lot of mortgage lenders that I talk to, they already bake their rate a year in advance.
Okay.
Based off predictions. So that's why when the Fed raised, 3 quarters of a basis points,
which is supposedly what they're about to do again on Wednesday.
Yeah, the mortgage rates didn't change.
But are you saying
the mortgage rates went down actually when the Fed raised the rates?
So aren't they going to have to take a haircut here if the cost of lending money increases, or how does that work?
Well, they're at 6%, and the Fed's only at 2-3%. I mean, so.
So you think So you don't think that another 0.5% to 1% in the Fed funds rate? You don't think that increases mortgage rates that much.
I don't think you'll see it increase that much.
Well, because a buddy of mine did the math the other day, and he said based on the current percentage, which was I think 3.6 or something like that, that over the length of the loan, 30 years, which nobody lives in their house 30 years anymore, that it adds about $200,000 to the price of the home. But again, who's staying in their house that long? It's kind of like the people who buy a car, and they've got like a 7%, 8% interest rate on it. It's like, you're not going to own that car, 5 years.
I think I actually think you're thinking way too smart. That's like the right way to think.
Well, it sucks if you live in like Detroit, like San Francisco, or places where they're not going to have huge appreciation gaps in the market. So Florida, I would say is solid regardless of what the Fed does or happens with interest rates, because you're seeing so much appreciation in real estate here, because it's still hard to build here,
right? Still demand people moving here.
You had a real population growth,
right,
over the last 2-3 years.
So you think we're a little bit insulated from the economic impact of that? Because I was going to say, Johnny, I think you're thinking the way I would think. Like, how much is this loan really going to cost me?
Yeah.
But I think the way most people are buying homes is they're looking at their monthly. They're just looking at the monthly amount.
What's the payment?
And and here's the thing. I saw in one of the articles talking about this that a year ago, the mortgage principal and interest on a $500,000 home, which sounds like an insane amount of money to me, growing up middle class. But apparently that's like an average home now or something. But in Florida, but anyway. The
400,000 is like the average.
400,000 is average. Okay, that's wild to me. But that the monthly payment, principal and interest on a $500,000 loan a year ago was around $2,490 something, right around there.
Yep.
And that the cost of a $350,000 home today is still around $2,500. So you're talking about $150,000. That's like a 33% correction.
Right.
So what this article was, pontificating is, under regular circumstances, you could be seeing a 33% correction in home prices. Now, based on what Vince just said, I don't think that's happening, right? Because it's Florida. People keep moving here.
Well, look at, my mom, she has a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in Baltimore.
Okay.
So she's going to sell that house, next year or two.
Okay.
Make
$1 billion.
No, $600,000, and then come to Florida and buy a 255 plus condo, maybe for $400,000.
And she feels great.
And feels great. Pays it for cash and has no issue.
Well, Tampa Bay is also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's pretty obvious. Tampa Bay has been undervalued for a long time.
It's also been undervalued, correct.
Is there any space in St. Pete? Or is it all gone?
Pinellas is 98% developed.
98% developed.
And there's nowhere to go but up.
So the only thing they haven't paved over is the public restroom. The only where left to build a home is these little nooks and crannies somewhere in the city. There's nowhere left to build. So your prices have nowhere to go but up.
They wouldn't even let them build Topgolf.
They started.
Oh yeah, did that happen? That's happening now, isn't it? They are happening. They are going to build a Topgolf, right? But they went through
less residential real estate though.
But they went through a whole rigmarole over that though, didn't they? Because of the
the Featherstown people, I don't think wanted it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to increase their property.
Of course it is. So look what it's done in Brandon.
Yeah.
Everything around that little cluster, Dave & Buster's, Topgolf, the indoor skydiving, Bass Pro Shops, all that's exploded. Everything around there just.
It's probably the only thing saving the mall. I don't know. Well, it's not close. It's not super close to the mall.
That mall's dying.
I'm just surprised. Yeah, I'm just like, what's going to happen there? I don't want to get us off topic. So so you don't think it's going to be as impactful because we're in Florida, but you mentioned Detroit. We get that. You mentioned San Francisco. San Francisco's not growing anymore. People's houses don't go up in value.
Businesses are leaving there.
People are checking out, right?
Well, remote work's got to be killing California.
Yeah.
Well, and to that note, again, back to the topic, the other thing is that this week, the Biden administration trying to take credit for allegedly saving this railroad strike that was about to hit the country, which would have disrupted supply chain issues and all that stuff. More. But the union themselves are saying, hey, slow down, buddy. It's like, we haven't finalized anything here. It's like, yeah, you're kind of got everybody close to being on the same page. But like they're already doing, like they're just doing a victory lap anyways, because they're doing anything and everything possible to bump up the numbers. I mean, last week we were talking about the Dark Brandon meme, with him going up there and giving that speech in front of the red wall and all that stuff.
Creepy.
It's but
V for Vendetta.
That was to fire up the base.
Yeah.
Because the base thought that he wasn't going aggressive enough. He wasn't going on offense. And that was his way. And if you look at it, it was actually funny enough, it was actually very Trump-esque, because all he did was attack Republicans the whole time.
Yeah.
And talked about, Republicans being the enemy of democracy, enemy of the country. And so they're trying to figure out what and anything and everything they can do to get his approval numbers up. And it just seems that every time they want to do a victory lap, I mean, reality just comes and just smacks them upside
so what
their
was
head.
it last week when he was doing the inflation victory speech, economic whatever?
Yep.
I started watching the speech, live, and they had a guy playing guitar.
James Taylor
playing guitar, and it's like they have him playing guitar and then just a picture of the stock market in red going down. I'm like, it's like the Titanic and the band, playing on the orchestra as the ship's sinking. I'm like,
well, and how appropriate. I mean, give me like a more depressing artist than James Taylor.
The difference between the Titanic and California, right?
What's that?
Is that when the Titanic sank, they still had their lights on.
Yeah.
Oh my God. All right. Let's keep this train moving, everybody. Speaking of keeping the lights on, again, just in addition to what we were just talking about, unfortunately, it looks like, and I think we'll relatively be okay here in Florida, but I think there's a major correction coming up. I'm just going to move this whole browser actually over to the monitor over here, because there's two major headlines. I think that, and there's even a third. We talked about last week a lot of U.S. Mortgage lenders going out of business. This one also a big red flag. Goldman Sachs laying off hundreds. From their office, as they again rein in expenses amid a collapse in deals volume. Bank reinstating traditional annual employee calls, which have historically targeted 1 to 5% of low performers. So they're kind of trying to make it seem like this is just cyclical stuff. But then, Amazon here.
Is it an omen or is it rich people's problems? Right, because they're saying due to low volume of deals.
Well, I think it's a future indicator, right? So, like they say, like the stock market's not the economy, But I mean, you could kind of look at the stock market and be like, okay, well, where's all this headed?
Well, I mean, Goldman Sachs wasn't laying off people in 2007 either.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
So, usually I like to bet against what all the headlines are saying.
So you're more optimistic on it? You think things are just going to kind of stay where they're at?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
I would say, I mean,
well, like there's less, like the mortgage volume is down,
right?
Because the cost of a mortgage is higher. So mortgage volume is down.
Right.
So by necessity, that's going to mean that some people in the mortgage business.
Yeah, but Goldman Sachs is doing a lot more than just.
No, I understand. I'm just saying
to
it.
2019 numbers though, so it's not like it's whoa, we've just totally hit the brakes and it's a hard stop completely.
Right.
The numbers are same to before COVID.
And that's what I'm kind of saying though. I mean, they're correcting their workforce numbers for the market. I mean,
but see, this is the thing. But then again, this is kind of my third red flag that I've seen
is Amazon.
So the first is the mortgage lenders closing in record numbers. Second is Goldman Sachs. Third is this Amazon story, closing, abandoning plans for dozens of warehouses throughout the country. They're laying off people by the hundreds. Really, all in anticipation of what they're saying that they're anticipating a downturn. They're anticipating
economic downturns. Economic downturns.
Now, this could be a correction because maybe they've grown too fast.
I was just going to say,
burned through the workforce.
They do serve as kind of a healthy diet for poorly run businesses, right? When you have businesses that they exist because of just the plethora of kind of money floating around. It's easy money, easy business or whatever, but you have these businesses that are structurally not sound. Maybe they have too many, maybe they've overhired. Maybe they've been, maybe their cash flow really isn't that great. They've been running at the limit, kind of on the margins, and then you lose a couple of accounts and all of a sudden you're bankrupt. I mean, I think some of this is just exposing and flushing out some bad business.
So I think with Amazon too, I have friends that do importing and exporting, from China and other things. I mean, you have, the cost of a shipping container, from China before COVID, it may have been like $12,000, $15,000.
Right.
Same cost of a shipping container today or a few months ago was $35,000 to $55,000.
Right.
So if Amazon, there's not independent wholesalers shipping stuff to Amazon warehouse, for them to sell stuff because the margins don't make any sense, you're going to see stuff, and then you don't have everybody who's been locked down for the last, year and a half or 2 years who are getting their stimulus checks, not being able to go to bars, restaurants, do lines of selfishness. They're just on Amazon. Oh, I'll buy, this and that. And, it's just a way for them to spend money.
Well, and the article also, mentioned that, it's also an adjustment to what they were anticipating was maybe a longer kind of pandemic lockdown.
And then they just start unionizing too. So maybe they're just shutting down before they could unionize, didn't they?
They're definitely struggling with some of that. Starbucks is definitely dealing with a lot of that.
Well, and I think to Johnny's point, though, I mean, it's kind of like, Amazon, if they need to increase the price of something to recoup the costs of shipping and all that, I mean, they can do that. They can raise products 20 cents a piece or something to recoup a lot of money. But to lay off workforce is to indicate a reduction in volume. A reduction in volume is a reduction in purchasing amongst the broader population. And who buys Amazon? Everybody. Yeah. So, I mean, that the Amazon thing is more of a concern to me than any of the other stuff and Amazon knows their business, man. You know that they know.
Well, and again, there's things that have been said by the Treasury, by the administration, by the Biden administration that I think tells me that some of this is going to be manufactured, because it's going to be the only way that they'll actually be able to bring down inflation, which is basically kind of blow it up.
Right. But you're still, even with the Fed raising rates to kind of like circle back and tie it in, there's still a strong kind of economy and deals are still happening.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, like just slam on the brakes, everyone's stopped. I mean, I'm still buying real estate. I know a lot of people that are still buying deals.
Well, and again, we may not feel the full brunt of it, but I think nationally, I think there's definitely going to be, I mean, I don't know if we're still technically in a recession or not, but I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
According to the White House, we were never in one.
So
the Federal Reserve doesn't have that many. The federal government doesn't have that many good choices. They can either default on their debt, which then they can't do. They raise interest rates, or excuse me, they inflate the currency, continue to print and inflate the currency, which continues with inflation, or raise rates and crash the economy, crash the stock market at a minimum. I mean, all options are bad for them at this point.
And then if the stock market goes down, people that invest pull their money out of the stock market and buy real estate. Where am I going to put my money? I'm not going to put my money in the market. Yeah. Well, now I'm going to put my money in an asset.
Well, and overseas right now, things aren't much better either. So
if I'm not doing manufacturing, I'm not doing importing, exporting, I'm not doing real Wall Street. Where are you going to put your money to invest?
Yeah,
real estate.
Their safest bet is to curtail the inflation, because inflation impacts the common man at the gas pump and everywhere else, and at the supermarket. Go ahead and curtail inflation, because that's going to benefit your voters. If they try to protect the stock market, I hate to tell you, most people out there, if they can't afford gas, they're not worried about their 401k. I'm not saying they shouldn't be, but they can't see that politically. They're not paying attention.
Tangible.
Yeah, it's not as tangible to the average voter politically. You better get the price of gas and food under control if you want to get elected or reelected.
Right. All right, Joe Wicker, Vincent Nowicki joining me here on the Yard Sign, the most important relevant podcast in politics. Again, don't forget to subscribe, like, follow, ring the bell, do all that fun stuff, whether you're following us on Facebook, YouTube, or any of the podcast platforms. Again, the audio version, very popular option for those of you who want to subscribe to the show. We're, again, proud to be number 148 in the country of political podcasts, and that number continues to grow thanks to you guys. Again, you can find us on any of the podcast platforms out there. Just search for the yard sign. We're going to close out today's show with our final topic. Again, thanks to our special guest, Vincent Nowicki, who, you broke this story. Actually, I don't think even breaking the story would be the right term. I mean, because you kind of created the story. I mean, at what point, like, did you already kind of have a heads up, or at what point did you connect the dots? Give us basically the story as to what happened, and then how you ended up getting involved in this council member from St. Petersburg resigning.
Well, so I don't know if you know that, I filed about a month ago, I filed an ethics complaint with the Commission on Ethics against Mayor Welsh for hiring his second cousin to be the development administrator for a $200,000 a year job.
Nice.
And I was like, wow. Well, that seems a little bit funny, because I remembered the guy, because I live downtown St. Pete.
Yeah.
And he was writing code violations for bars and restaurants, shutting them down at the time of COVID. So I remembered because I had a few interactions with him because I live downtown. And then I'm like, wait a second, he's now the development administrator of the whole city, and I'm in real estate, so I'm like, this guy's got no experience.
It's a nice jump.
Oh yeah, no experience in real estate. So then I do a couple public records requests and see that the city put out a job posting for the position, and they had 35 people apply, and he was never one of them.
Wow.
And then I contacted everybody that did apply, and not a single one of them got an interview. You had a guy from Charlotte, North Carolina, who was their development director for a decade and oversaw 80 acres of development there. Didn't even get a phone call back.
Wow.
And it went on and on. You had the guy right underneath the development administrator for the city, who's there since 2008, applied for the job, which would have been of lateral increase, which is something has municipal experience, had that.
Well, and somebody who's seen the growth,
you investigate
kind of happen.
Yeah, never got an interview.
To me, that'd be the best option, given how great the growth has been downtown.
Never got an interview for the job.
Wow.
And so, and then I got a tip that they were related. Corbett and Welsh were related. And so then it took about 3 to 4 days of digging to find the family relation. And there's several news articles that show, sadly, a couple of Ken Welsh's cousins, passed away in a car accident. It was pretty tragic. But it says that James Corbett was the full brother of one of the girls that passed away, Lamoya Welsh. And that was Ken Welsh's first cousin.
Right.
Well, so if you're a full brother to somebody, or full brother, and that person is Ken Welsh's first cousin, by default, I mean, I'm not a rocket scientist, but that would be your cousin too.
Genealogist, but
but that would be your cousin too.
Sure.
So that story broke and was in the paper. And the Commission on Ethics actually meets on Thursday to go over the complaint. So I'm excited to see how that goes.
Okay.
It was like 20 pages.
So that's still in progress.
Yeah. So it was 20 pages. So then I got a call, from someone that wants to remain anonymous that says, "Hey, I think Councilmember Bowman moved out of their district. I don't know much about it, whatever. Here's a couple news articles of like her legal name. Can you look into it?" So, I said, "Oh, okay, let me take a look." And you start peeling back the onion.
Wow.
And then, here's the warranty deed. Boom. Here's her mortgage filed with the clerk of court. Boom.
Yeah, because even if you happen to live in St. Pete, as we were talking before the show, she doesn't run on her actual as we would say, government name.
Yeah, I mean, so her legal name is Talisha Bowman.
Got it.
And she goes by Lisa Wheeler Bowman. So, I found out she moved out of her district. Well, I didn't really necessarily want to believe it at first.
Sure.
So then I kind of dug a little bit deeper, pulled the voter registration, went to that address. You'd have a hard time finding her here, they said. I'm the only one that lives here.
Oh.
So wait a minute. Her actual address is wrong. You're saying her actual address on her filing paperwork with
there could even be voter fraud here.
Correct, because the SOE confirmed that she voted in the primary, but she was already into the new house, which is outside of the district.
And didn't do an address change.
And didn't do an address change and voted in the old precinct.
Wow.
So that would be,
So now, aside from...
I'm not the state attorney.
No, but I mean, but
So she's now had to resign because she moved, but also may have committed
that
voter fraud.
might have been a crime. Yeah, she might have committed a crime.
And so, I then went by the house and hired a private investigator to run, her plates and everything like that. Because I like to be very thorough when I do something.
Well, I mean, there's serious accusations.
Right. So the private investigator confirmed that it was her husband's cars. And so I went to the address on file for where the cars were registered because they weren't registered to that address. And, they moved out in November at that address. But state law says that you're going to change your car registration within 30 days of moving, so they didn't do that.
So they haven't done that either.
Yeah, just piling up the charges.
Wow.
State Attorney Bruce Bartlett, if you're listening,
Yeah.
Well, she probably didn't want to do that because, but she did.
Attention.
But she did change her address, though. She filed a homestead exemption. Where's her homestead exemption?
At the new address outside of her district.
Well, because the loan is under her name.
Right, and it's a VA loan, and the VA loan stipulates that it has to be your primary residence.
Sure.
So I said, when I went to the city council, I said, either facts are stubborn things. Either Lisa Wheeler Bowman is committing mortgage fraud, or she's in violation of the city charter, and per the charter needs to be immediately removed from office.
And so, per the city charter, immediately? Is it immediate?
It says in the charter, if the council member moves out of the district in which they were elected to, shall be immediately removed from office by city council.
I do remember that being in some of the news coverage we've already seen.
Yeah.
That one of the other city council members had to read that letter of resignation, or just state that she had resigned.
Right. So then I went to the council meeting on Thursday, and I wanted to verify that the car that's been at the house was in her parking spot at City Hall. So once I had that, documented, I sent off because it says that they have to be given written notice that they're in violation of the charter, and then the council can start the process. So I wrote a letter stating, hey, you bought a house, used a VA loan, has to be your primary residence. Consider this your legal notice, and you should be removed from office immediately. So once I sent that email off, I had people in the council meeting, and they said it was you started to see people on their phones and laptops started, things started happening kind of behind the scenes. And then it was the Pledge of Allegiance and then prayer. And then Councilmember Bowman then left the meeting. And then a few minutes later, the city attorney left. And then a few minutes after that, the city clerk left. And then I went into the meeting. And then the city clerk finally came back. The city attorney and Councilmember Bowman didn't. But then somebody came and grabbed Lisa's stuff and left the meeting as well.
Wow.
And the city clerk, who I know, kind of hey.
Yeah.
Kind of, gives me a little head nod there of I'm in the back.
So needless to say, no outdoor dining for you for some time.
All your projects are getting denied.
That's right.
I won't buy any houses.
They're coming through. Hey, we saw you throw that. We saw you throw that piece of paper out there. That's a $500 fine.
Leave the trash can outside.
Something fell out of the back of your truck. That's another $500.
And that's got to be tough, right? Because again, it's you don't want to be the one. Yeah. Causing the big stink. But at the same time, the rules are the rules.
Right.
And again, what's crazy about the story is that this is just the surface.
Right.
The more that you have kind of dug into this, the more layers of other things wrong you're finding in all of this going on.
So now it's timed up with the city. We have our redistricting commission, which looks at the districts every 10 years to change the districts on city council with the census. So it just so happens that the Councilmember Bowman, her appointee to the commission, Pastor J.C. Pritchett, he was the only one lobbying to move Lisa's district into the new neighborhood where she bought her house.
Right.
So he went over the highway, above another district, and then into another district. So he crossed through 2 districts and a highway to include this neighborhood.
Now, are they in the middle of redistricting?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
All right.
But you're going.
But he's also involved. he's on this committee.
He was appointed by her to serve on the committee,
right,
to try to help.
Conveniently,
right. To try to
and then his son is her legislative aide on council.
Oh, jeez.
The pastor's son.
Right. So the pastor's son, who just graduated college in May.
Yep.
He has a lot of experience.
Sure.
Was appointed to be the legislative aide to Lisa Wheeler Bowman back, in June, right before she bought a house.
Well, and politically speaking, I mean, we also know the value of having a pastor really to vouch for you.
I was just getting ready to say, look how she's using him and look how he's willing to be used.
Sure.
She gave his son a job, and it's on city money.
Well, and how he's also using her.
With city benefits.
Yep.
It's probably a decent gig. And then he's going to get appointed to this thing, and he's going to push for the district to change. Probably going to bring his congregation in on that and say something how the district needs to represent us, blah, 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 whatever, and push for that. And then he gets some credit because he gets a little bit of deference for being a pastor. And then she's using him for that, man.
And I'm sure she's probably been a member of his congregation for a long time.
I don't know that.
Wow.
But,
I mean, right. But in regardless, I mean, not that matters a whole lot.
She chose to buy a house when she bought it outside of the district.
Right.
She could have waited till redistricting was done. But actually, I mean, is redistricting not in any way an argument that she gets to make? I'm not I'm not defending her. I'm just curious.
Sure.
Like, I'm surprised that she's not bringing up redistricting. Well, we don't know where the lines are going to fall. Oh, okay. Well, after
redistricting, regardless,
it is. No, it is. I'm just saying that she could have claimed, well, we're redistricting. I mean, she still moved out of the district in the middle of the district lines. Either way it goes, she still moved out of the district.
Because what are the odds? Again, for those of us who don't know really the kind of map of St. Petersburg that well, what are the odds that where she now lives would fall within that district?
Well, so her district was like 275 west, to like 49th Street, down to like 22nd Avenue South, like Gulfport area.
Okay,
so kind of a chunk, 275, 49th Street South. To 22nd.
The 275 kind of being that border.
Right. So, that's kind of typically, those are major intersections, major roads that typically you would follow on a map.
Yep.
Well, so he was lobbying to have it cut over the highway east 3 blocks, which was above another district.
Sounds like a congressional district.
So why wouldn't you just move that one district up a little bit?
Yeah.
And then into a second district. So it's not like you're just bumping into one. You're going through 2 districts to include this house. And it's not like it ended at a major road. It was just like a regular street.
Yeah.
How dumb can you be as a politician to purposefully take out a mortgage and make it your primary residence outside of the district that you can't do that?
Well, she said she didn't know.
Do it.
She said she didn't know in the stack of mortgage paperwork that she didn't know it had to be her primary residence.
You know your address.
Right.
Oh, she means in the chartered paperwork for becoming a city council member.
So like when she resigned in her resignation, she said in the stack of mortgage paperwork, she didn't realize that I had to make this my primary residence
for the purpose of the mortgage, for the VA mortgage. Yeah. She didn't realize.
So claiming like it wasn't mortgage fraud and not defrauding the VA.
Which had she known, she probably would have done what a lot of people do, which is they'll have a home in the district, that they don't actually live in, but it's under their name, and then they actually live somewhere else.
Well, she's trying to avoid voter fraud,
Of
so
course.
it's like saying like, oh no, I was really
late for that.
here. I was already living here. But then we have videos, which the reporter, said in the Tampa Bay Times article, well, there's videos of her dancing in the new kitchen, and the photos that match, realtor.com.
Oh, geez.
So it's like, well,
they had somebody posted outside her house taking photos.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's her own photos. It's
from social media.
Oh, it's her own stuff from social media.
Yeah.
Got
and
it.
then they pulled like the comparable photos that were listed for
It's
sale.
clearly her house.
Yeah. And that was before voting.
Well, she's making that city council money now. I mean,
Well, I suggested that she should pay back the taxpayers for the last 2 months when she should have immediately resigned after buying the house.
Of course.
She should have to pay back that
She
money.
just thought she was going to skate through. She just thought no one was going to be none the wiser, right?
Yeah.
She just thought.
But obviously, I mean, it seems like her problems are just getting started.
I mean, I don't have an axe to grind against her.
No, I mean, you're not the one initiating this. I mean,
Right.
Other than the resignation,
Right.
which again, I mean, somebody had to bring it to light.
Right.
But all this other stuff that she has done, intentionally or unintentionally. I mean,
So when's the election?
That's right. So, well, that's the next step. So I believe the council appoint somebody, don't
within
they?
45 days.
Oh, they have to
45
appoint
days.
somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah,
then the next,
that's convenient.
And then the next election.
It ain't gonna be you.
I don't live in the district either.
No, I ain't gonna be you.
Well, that's good because
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't seem like you kind of had a
Yeah.
an edge to gain.
No,
the,
yep,
you
I
know,
don't live in the
so.
district. I'm not.
Yeah.
Involved.
But
in
it's
that.
interesting how you, as a businessman, you have every right to be concerned about who is regulating you.
I pay a lot of taxes.
Yeah.
I have a lot of properties in the city and pay a lot of taxes.
And you have a right to be concerned about who is it that's regulating your industry. Are these competent people, these bureaucrats? Do they know what they're doing? You look into who's doing this, and you're like, wait a minute, this guy doesn't seem to have any experience. The next thing you know, you're like, oh, where does this lead? Where does this lead? And it leads to a council member who doesn't even live there.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, Mayor Welch seems to be doing a lot of strange things.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I would say is probably rubbing people the wrong way in the city.
Well, and he scrapped the whole plan for Tropicana Field and
that whole
property.
Knew that was coming. Whoever the new mayor was going to start that over anyway.
Yeah, because they all want their thumbprint on it.
Exactly. But the biggest thing that's bothering me and so many voters of St. Pete, and if I could get one message to Ken Welsh, don't kill the Moffitt deal. He literally killed the Moffitt deal in downtown St. Pete.
That's so crazy.
And Moffitt has a $2.5 billion economic impact. And it's like, nah.
Yeah.
We don't need Moffitt downtown St. Pete because they were a difference.
Not to mention like how amazing it would be to have it right next to John Hopkins, right next
All
to
Children's
All
Hospital,
Children's,
Bayfront.
USF. I mean,
they're
wow.
going to build a campus there. Like their premium gem was going to be downtown St. Pete. It was going to be a huge campus. And it was because they said, we're going to do, they're going to build like 200 units of housing there for, transient, people that need care, doctors, nurses and stuff. So they said, well, we'll set aside 10% of the 200 units that we're building for affordable housing, that the city can work with and, put in people that need housing there. Ken Welsh gets into office after, Mayor Kreisman baptizes the deal. Even the CBA, the Community Benefit Agreement, which is essentially like the equity police in St. Pete, they even gave the deal the blessing.
Wow.
And so now they said, hey, Ken Welsh came in and says, well, you need to do 30% of affordable housing. And they're like, well, that's a lot, 30% of 200 units.
It's huge.
And we're just taking that as a straight loss. They're like, we'll come up to 17.5%. Nope, not good enough. You can't build here anymore.
Wow.
And killed the deal.
Wow.
Wow.
And 1 in 4 Americans die from cancer too.
Right.
Yeah, because they wouldn't pay the crown, really.
Yeah.
They're going to build it,
right?
But they want to be told to give over housing, and because because a private corporation, well, I guess it's actually a nonprofit, right?
Right.
Because they wouldn't build something and they build housing and then give it over to the city as payment.
Yeah. Well, hey, Vincent,
crazy, man.
We'll definitely be having you on for an update, and then the door's always open. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
When are you running again?
Yeah.
Whenever you write a check.
Whenever I write a check.
I'm just kidding.
No, seriously. I mean, is there any chance?
Any timeline or?
I'm focused on my business.
Okay.
I've gotten a lot of tips over the last month and so of more nefarious dealings. So there may be a couple more stories.
Yeah.
That we're working on.
All right, so 2024. Got it.
All right. Vince Nowicki, everybody. Joe Wicker joining me today on today's show. Thank you guys for an amazing show. And again, we'll be bringing you updates on that St. Pete story, along with all the news and politics of the day. We appreciate you for watching The Yard Sign. We've got a new website coming up, including a new sponsor as well. So we're going to have a lot of news over the next week, probably 2 weeks, and excited to share all of that with you. But in the meantime, make sure you follow us on social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and your favorite podcast platforms. Subscribe, like, follow, share, ring the bell on YouTube. And again, you can catch us at the Tech Overlords at Google, Apple, Spotify, Audible, Amazon, Odyssey, iHeartRadio, and Samsung podcast platforms. I'm Johnny Torres. We'll see you back here next Monday. It's been The Yard Sign. Good night, everybody. Good night.